Welcome back. Now, if you're just joining us, you're still onto the press, coming to you live from the Abuja studios of KAFTAN TV, and we have been joined by a guest with whom we are going to be doing the analysis to some of the headlines we have read to you. He is by name Honorable Moses Okezie Okafor, a legal practitioner, the Director General Research and Development, Kogi State, and member of the Kogi State Executive Council. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Hello, viewers.
It's good to have you on the program once again, and not to forget that he is the head of administration, National Youth Mobilization of the APC Presidential Campaign Council of the 2023 general elections. And on that note, I'd like us to start on a political, from the political side of things.
Okay.
As regards the 2023 presidential elections, the U.S. have announced some visa restrictions on some Nigerians they have classified as election riggers. But the word on the mouth of every Nigerian right now is that it shouldn't stop at announcing that a visa restriction has been placed on election riggers. You should take it a step further by naming who they are. By naming who they are, let Nigerians know these are the people that do not want, that are against the peace of Nigerians. What do you think about this very issue, the visa restrictions and Nigerians calling for the culprits to be named?
Okay, well, my view is the United States of America is a sovereign country, and Nigeria is a sovereign country. Okay, so visa restrictions should, and ordinarily by law, applies to those who go to ask for their visa, right? Okay. So it is not to the world at large. Now, if the United States government has done its own evaluations and been able to pinpoint 1, 2, 3 individuals who they believe, actually the word was those who prevented voters. So we're talking about electoral violence and not, you know, other forms, at least not as extensively as our electoral act goes into electoral malpractices. So they are looking at those who got involved in violence. I hope that includes the sponsors as well as the perpetrators. Yeah. So if that is the case, I think what they've done is really the best they can. Really, you don't just name people, okay, especially when they've not come to you for anything. You know, you just wait for them until such a time as the person comes and says, look, I'd like to travel to the US, and then you say, no, you're on our visa restriction list. Because a lot of them, we don't know who they are, might probably never want to ask for a US visa. Now, if the United States government feels particularly peeved about certain observations in the last general elections and want to take another round of actions, want to be more directly involved, they too have their own protocols for that, and Nigeria would also need to consider whether they can allow that level of interference. So it's okay that our allies are doing what they can in their own corner to assist our elections here. But for me, I don't believe there is actually any need to publish the names or faces of people as sort of diplomatic mugshots. Okay, no, I don't think that is very important. And another reason is this. You see, when you also do that, there is a tendency to prejudice certain things that are ongoing, including the election petitions, and not just at the federal level, but also because there are still so many in so many states. There are election petitions all over the place. And so if somebody is named, okay, and people here, even some pusillanimous judges might say, if America has called this person a rigger or that he was involved in violence, it will color their decision making. Yes, and you see, one funny thing is that people used to think that when the US or any of our foreign allies, when they do something like this, it's for one particular party. You'll be surprised now if that list is made public, people from every party and from every level of election will be there. You understand?
But don't you think that's the right thing to do? Because you said you don't think it's the right thing to publish the names, but don't you think that also helps in curtailing future involvement in things like this? Because when you know that when I do this, what if some allies find out and they publish my name? Because
and I'll be named and shamed.
Because we also see other situations. Let's say the times where we heard that the federal government has a list of those who were sponsoring terrorism in Nigeria, but they never published that list, and terrorism kept on going. So don't you think publishing that list and shaming them also puts an end to all of this?
These are electoral crimes, okay? Ordinarily, they ought to be, the individuals are considered innocent until proven guilty. And they ought to go through a trial process within the laws of Nigeria. Now, the US would be breaching a lot of their own rules, as well as diplomatic and other agreements with Nigeria, when you begin to pronounce, on crimes in Nigeria, okay? Because that is just what it means. For you to accuse somebody clearly and without any doubt that you involved yourself in election malpractices, you have taken a position. Now, you and I, as individuals, of course, we know those we believe this person didn't do well during this election, this person's attitude, but even us cannot really come out, okay, to treat them as if they've already been convicted. And that is why I'm always very pained when it appears as if the laws in this country are just for decoration. Because really, as the petitions are ongoing, I would have expected that everybody who was involved or was caught, arrests were made, okay? All of them should be on trial too. There's no reason why they are either in detention or out on bail. At the same time as the petitions are on, some of these guys can start being tried and processed to prison. And that is the only way our laws will work. I'm one of those who say that Nigerian elites should not understand that the law works only when they are in trouble with a foreign country and have to face trial there. The laws of Nigeria has teeth, except that those who own the jaws are not masticating. And that is the reason why I believe that it's also going to be very difficult for the United States government to reel out a list of election malfeasors who have truly not gone through trial. But they have their own right as a country to say, from our observations, anytime you come to us for a visa, we're going to deny you. If it gets into the press at that point in time, it's news, it's breaking news. And then we know 1, 2, 3. But if that list is even made public now, for instance, and you just see some, let me call it a small fry all over the place, no really big person, even as Nigerians, we're going to begin to think America has taken sides with the oppressors. Because there are some names you would imagine you would see on such a list, and then you're hearing of people that you
probably do not know
yes,
about.
because now all there is a linkage between them or their interests and the person who did whatever on the field, but there has been no legal connection. Okay, so it's really a dicey place that the US has found itself. They've tried to be a little bit bold by at least announcing it. It will unveil itself gradually. So again, the ball is in our court as a nation. I don't think we should keep waiting for help from abroad in stuff like this. We have what it takes to police ourselves and to ensure that crimes are punished, both as a deterrent and also, of course, to ensure that the individual pays for what is done against the state and against fellow citizens.
All right. Okay, I think we have to move away from that headline. Let's quickly take this headline, and it's on issues of strike. Resident doctors begin warning strike today, 5 days warning strike. But I also want to attach this to that of ASU strike, because I'm seeing a headline also on this The Nation this morning. Federal government approves 37 new private universities. When the federal universities are not working, we still see issues of approving more private universities. Then the issues that they have with ASU has not even been put to death, because we know that in months to come, that one will arise again. So all of these issues of medical sector not being taken care of, educational sector not being taken care of, how do you react to this? And how do you think we can even get it right?
Well, for me, the ASU strike is strictly public sector. And it might even be that the more private universities we have, the more there is competition within the tertiary education sector. Perhaps our public schools might begin to live up to their charter a bit. They are not meant to be 100% dependent, the way they are. They're supposed to be into research, development. They're supposed to have ventures. Like when I was in school, we used to have the University of Nigeria General Enterprises Limited. It can basically do anything.
Yeah, but do you think? But do you think the government has created an enabling environment for these schools, for the Nigerian universities, to be able to thrive with their researches? Do you think the government has provided them with enough funding to be able to thrive with these researches?
I might be biased, I have to say that, but I think that it's not a question of what the federal government can do now. It's a question of what is available. Okay, all the resources that we need to give to the university, even if we get an administration that is willing and ready to, even if we put 90% of our budget to tertiary education alone, it's still not going to solve the problem. So our universities have to get to the point where they operate like their counterparts abroad, where they actually make money, where a lecturer writes a book and in partnership with the school, that book is sold and money is made. At the end of the day, the federal government has to do much more than it is currently doing. That we will not take away from the mix. Okay, and again, I want to give it to the Buhari administration that they have actually shown some very serious commitments to at least some agreements with us, including those they didn't sign. In the release of money, upgrade of universities, and they've done a lot, okay, which is still not enough. What we are looking at, what the major problem with our universities is just the normal human problem of competition over scarce resources. It's just not going to be possible for the federal government to fund all the universities to the level where they expect to be funded. Okay, it's just like that. So when you hear more private universities are coming on board, I'm thinking that I mean, the US probably has up to 600 or 700, if not thousands of tertiary institutions, and Nigeria still has a lot of room in that sector. Okay, a lot of universities have recently come on board. Some of them are very good, some of them are let me say, in terms of fees, are not as outrageous as some others. So it's beginning to look as if no matter where your economic strength is, you will find a private university that should be able to serve your purpose. And again, I notice a lot of lacuna in the online study sector in Nigeria. Okay, we are here, we are running courses with schools, Udemy, EDX, so many other online platforms, and we're getting certificates from foreign universities that are very authentic, owned by this, including the Harvards, the Cambridges, Oxfords, and the rest. And I don't see why the Nigerian universities themselves are not keen into this. There are so many young persons and older people who want to quickly get a degree or a short course, certification, and you rarely find a Nigerian university where you can do things online. Okay, because people are very busy nowadays. So that is and people actually tend to pay more for this. Like, for instance, if you want to run maybe a 6-week course with Harvard, they could tell you $3,000 or even more. And you see people struggle, save up to do it. You know, and yet here is not working. When you ask our schools, they tell you internet is poor. And I say, if the internet is poor for you that is here in Nigeria, how come I'm doing a course with Harvard, running a course with MIT, I'm doing something with a Middlesex University, and internet is not preventing me? Why is it a problem to you? I think our schools also need to begin to look more on the entrepreneurial side of their mandate. It's there in their charters. They can really go wild on the entrepreneurial side. It will help. Okay, but the more you keep waiting, the problem with free funds is that it's subject to roadblocks a lot of the times. It's just flowing through a system. There's a blockage, everybody is suddenly dry. You know, so something has to be done to diversify the sources of income and other things for the universities. For God's sake, I don't even see why a university should be running a hostel. This is something you can outsource to any developer in this country. You give him land on the university campus, sign a long lease agreement with him, and he gives you 2,000 rooms for your students, and they pay direct to him. You take your own percentage. And you know, there are so many things that could be done. But I go to schools, I see hostels. You can't even walk into the hostels because it's people's children are living there, but there is no facility management, there is no cleaning services, and the people you do see are NASU. A lot of them also would go on strike at the slightest drop of a pin. So the whole system seems to be held captive by its own weight. So I think it's time for new thinking to come on board, and some of these things should just be completely privatized. You know, it will help our federal universities. You know, one of the things, and state universities have some of the best facilities in terms of original planning, the things that were built. If you see some of the buildings and everything, and when you leave it like that, they tend to just merely dilapidate. Okay, but if you are creative about maintaining them, you could actually make some money out of it. And it's just a suggestion. I don't think we should continue to be, you know, just walk around this okra bush. You know, after a while, if the okra is taller than the owner, they say you pull it down and still pluck it. So it's the best thing to do. Let's find a way to so that our children don't grow up and go through what we went through 30, 40 years ago. It's still, I mean, it's becoming
more like
it's not working.
You've shed so much light on the educational sector. Okay, let's now come back to the medical sector, because like I mentioned earlier, doctors begin 5-day warning strike. You also brought up a lot of ideas of how we can improve our educational sector by not just sitting and waiting for government, some entrepreneurial ideas that we can add.
Harness.
Yes. So what do you say about the medical sector? Do you have more ideas?
Yes, the same thing. I think the biggest disservice that the doctors, apologies to NMA and the members, have done to this country is, again, not exploring the entrepreneurial aspect of their profession, their field. Yes, if you check in Nigeria, almost every other professional course, okay, or profession has expanded. Even the lawyers in Nigeria, we have global law firms here. Okay, you go into estate development, nobody abroad will want to come and do estate in Nigeria because the competition is fierce. The Nigerian firms are doing well. You go into accountancy, you know, but the doctors don't set up hospitals. You go to India, most of the big hospitals we go to in India, Dubai, and everywhere are owned by medical personnel, medical doctors themselves.
Medical doctors.
They just go out the way. If Otedola or Elumelu, anybody wants to acquire Transcorp, he looks for investors. They find investors, they set up a massive hospital, and people come from around the world, and you know, it's you just make money. But I think because the medical profession, you know, I'm speaking this with every sense of responsibility, and I have a lot of friends who are doctors, because it's easy to find work abroad. It's easy to find work even here in Nigeria. As long as you've graduated as a doctor, you take your pick of available yes, you know, jobs. And in fact, the federal government and state governments and even local government bend over backwards to make sure that you get the best pay they can afford. They pay doctors better than they pay any other profession, you know. So because of that, it seemed to have kind of removed their eyes from what they can really be. So our own mega hospitals are not coming on board. I don't know if you get me. They're not coming on board. And I've argued this everywhere. I've had opportunity to speak to them at fora, person to person. You know, if our doctors can just begin to look at the opportunities, and if you in this same country you have private health management organizations that are making so much money, you understand me? So what we are lacking is that particular sector or subsector within that health sector, which is private investments. A place like Abuja now should have nothing less than 20 or 30 world-class hospitals owned outside the federal. I mean, when you look at, I don't want to call names so that it doesn't look as if I'm advertising for people on here. But we have one or two in Abuja here, and people just keep rushing them because they don't have competition. They can actually set their prices for anything, and citizens of Nigeria will still have to pay, whether it's kidney transplant, whether it's fertility treatment, whether it's just name it. Okay, they can call any price, and simply because there's a level of excellence, the 2 or 3 individuals who own it have insisted on excellence and services that are very, very qualitative. People pay. If you don't have the money, you go and look for it. And Nigeria is a bottomless market for the health sector. So that is one area I think our doctors should look to, while we're also urging the federal government to keep, and the state government to keep doing what they can to improve on their remuneration when they are working in public hospitals. But again, it is just not possible to pay them everything that they demand. If you do that, again, not the entire budget of a state can pay just the medical personnel that it's employed by that state. So along the line, I beg my colleagues, yes, this JAPA syndrome, you can emigrate abroad. It comes very easy to them. So a lot of them are just, you know, trooping out there to go and work many times in private hospitals, okay, where they become the stars. And I'm like, you could start life like that. But at some point, why not come back home? Okay, if you put up a very good, even there was a time I had to do an eye surgery, okay, LASIK, because I have been very short-sighted from childhood, and at a point my glasses were getting so thick that it was becoming unwieldy. So I had to go do something, you know. And in my research, I just came across this clinic in Dubai, and it was like all the in fact, it was just beautiful, you know. Everything about it was like, man, this is massive. And I got to Dubai, and he was just operating in a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, okay, with every world-class eye equipment you could think of. In fact, when I did my research, it was better. The personnel who were doing it were also the ones that were doing it in the places in the US and the UK where it was costing so much. Meanwhile, their own prices in Dubai is about half of what I would get abroad.
in
And the doctors there were the ones who were, they would come here, spend some time, then go to the US or UK in their own facilities there to do it. And at home, they owned that particular, I won't name names again.
Okay.
They owned that particular clinic. I got there 2018, I did it. I've not had any complaints since then. In fact, I've not even had the opportunity to go back for checkup, but I'm good, you know. I just want to say that if our doctors really can finally come to the realization that the federal government is, or the state government or whoever, is not ready to do much more than it has currently done, okay, and then instead of thinking on living, begin to think on living, you know, living good in the country. And honestly, I believe something can be arranged. I don't believe that if the NMA packages itself and goes to the federal government, we need a startup grants to set up some hospitals, and the federal government can put down 100 billion, 200 billion, and then, you know, we start having some hospitals that specialist hospitals shouldn't be too big in the, you know, at the beginning. But if this is a cancer center, this is a psychiatrist hospital, everybody knows about it. This one is very good in pediatrics. This one is very, I mean, the few in Abuja here that are into fertility treatment, rarely, you can rarely get an appointment. I don't know if you get me. So what do you call it? The opportunities in the health sector, they are just rife. And then there are venture capitalists, people who have money, who are looking for where to invest. And hospitals are always a very good investment. Always a very good investment. So I would again plead that our medical people help us. Please don't go abroad. We need you here. And we don't need the federal government to make laws against that.
I was just going to talk about the proposed bill now that's going to make it more difficult for the medical personnel to leave the country in search of greener pastures. But since you've talked about it, it's pertinent that we move on to other stories. And on that note, the Inspector General of Police has warned persons plotting to scuttle inauguration of new government and has ordered a manhunt for elements behind the plot. It's barely 2 weeks to the inauguration of the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and it is expected to usher in a new administration. At this point, we still have political elements making some statements capable of inciting violence, when there is already a petition there's already a petition before the tribunal. What do you make of this whole scenario? And I would want you to talk about the scramble for the leadership of the National Assembly. I know there are two different questions, but I want to unbundle them in one breath.
Okay, well, for me, we finished the elections. The results have been announced. His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the president-elect and is getting ready to be sworn in on the 29th of May. There's really nothing to say except that anybody who is aggrieved has multiple legal options. Yes. The only thing that the police, and not just the police, but the entire law enforcement machinery of the country should not allow is illegal options. Okay, people have gone to the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal. It's sitting, and so far no complaints. Some states too are setting up the gubernatorial, even House of Assembly. That is the law. It's always been like that since 1999. I don't think there's been any president or even governor who was sworn in that did not do so while petitions against his election are in court. Some have been removed. some removed, reinstated, some removed and asked to work. Yes, some have been upheld. So that is the system, and we should be able to respect that system. It is resorting to self-help, this sudden vehemence that in 2023 there must be no swearing in until whatever it is they expect at the tribunal, as if they already know the outcome. Okay, that rather than that they will burn down the country, they will do this. You know, that is suddenly changing the goalposts in the middle of the game. In fact, this administration has also tried, you know, in constitutional amendments and amendments to the Electoral Act that has even limited the time. There were times in this country, a governor will probably be finishing his tenure before the challenge to his election is concluded. Now it's just 180 days. So we can be patient. We can be patient. And if really citizens believe that somebody who's been elected should not be sworn in until the petition has been disposed of, it's another season of going back to the National Assembly and getting that imputed into the laws. Because when you do that, you're acting legally. But when you take laws into your hand, you can expect to be countered by the law enforcement agencies. And frankly, I don't think they should let up on that. It's the right thing to do. It's their duty. They should be very, very, very vigilant and ensure that nothing that is outside the laws should be, should be done. So I want to maybe end that there. And then you talked about the leadership of the National Assembly. Well, in normal times, okay, there is the party which has the majority ought to sit down and decide. Okay, and key figures should be allowed to make inputs. All right, but we are looking at a situation right now where it appears as if the decisions made are not very acceptable to a lot of vested interests, pressure groups, sectional or like call it regional agglomeration of both citizens, politicians, and even the incoming lawmakers themselves. Okay. So I just want to believe that the best thing to do is allow those who will ultimately make that decisions, okay, to be talking to themselves. All right, and at the end of the day, whoever they give us, anything even the president-elect, the party says, is subject to there being loyal party members and going into those chambers that day on the day of election and executing those. Those things are more or less persuasive. They are not mandatory. Okay. I hope that my party, I'm an APC person, I hope that my party will be able to get it right so that equity, justice, fairness are all taken into consideration. No. I could go a bit deeper. Okay. But let me not do that on your station. Personally, I have vested interests too, based on maybe where I come from, and the fact that I think there should be more inclusiveness for us. Okay. We are just begging, we are pleading. Yes, it was very difficult to deliver on a lot of things, but when you want to look at where a man has climbed, you need to ask yourself, where is he climbing out from? The man who is coming from downstairs and finally gets to the third floor should not be judged with the man who started from the third floor. Okay. It was very difficult for the APC in the Southeast generally. It was very difficult. So anybody who even managed to win his election in the Southeast is actually more of a tiger politically than perhaps his counterpart in places where the APC has wider acceptance. And again, there is the need to begin to bring healing to this country. Okay, there is that need to, and I don't think the best way to respond to the third force that the Southeast has become in Nigerian politics is by saying maybe you didn't vote for us, so we're not going to give you anything significant. We can be bigger persons here and say, okay, we give a handshake across the Niger to the southeast. Let's see how what they do with this. You know, somebody has to break these on parts, especially between the APC and the southeastern eastern part of this country. Somebody has to just be the bigger person and say, I'm going to just break this impasse. Otherwise, it just continues to linger and fester. You know, and that is the only reason why I believe that we should have it. Okay. We've really supported our brethren from the South a lot in the past, including when their brother was president. We've sacrificed mightily for them. And it would have just been nice to at least give us that
opportunity.
Yes, opportunity.
Yeah, but
we are begging.
But you've talked so much about equity, fairness, and justice in the sharing formula, but the Constitution of Nigeria and the Electoral Act as amended clearly stated that the National Assembly members shall elect their leaders amongst themselves. Don't you think there's too much interference between the party and the National Assembly now?
No, I don't really want to call it interference. It's just no politician is an island unto himself or herself.
All right, Honorable Okezie,
yes.
Sorry to cut you short. We'll have to go on a very short break now. We'll come back. You'll make your submission. Stay tuned. When we come back, the program will continue.
In a world where information is vital to every individual, a platform where technology is a medium to pass information, you can always catch up on all information written in the newspapers, even without having one. Join us on The Press.
Live from the Abuja studios.
On The Punch for this morning.
The Blueprint newspaper, Nigerian Tribune this morning.
As we give you information and opinions about current events and topical issues on politics, business, sports, entertainment, weather forecasts, and lots more in the local city, across all states, and across all countries. Showing daily on StarTimes, channel 124, 9 a.m. West African time, only on KAFTAN TV. Stay connected with us.
That he said it is a reason why I will not do it.
I pursue the federal government to pay us our damages.
YouTube, KAFTAN TV.
A very tricky one. And then the bottom line is this.
Website www.kaftan.tv.
Point is, the youth must come together. The pendulum can swing in your favor.
Welcome back now, and thanks for staying tuned. We are still here with Honorable Okezie Okafor. Thank you for staying with us. You were about saying something before we went on that short break.
Yeah, I think remind me the other where we were now.
Yeah, we're talking about the issue of interference of the party in the affairs of the National Assembly.
Yes, I don't think we should call it interference. It's the nature of politics that consultations are made widely, okay, to make sure you carry every interest along. My plea on the other side is contributing to the consultations. Okay. But yes, when the time comes to vote, okay, the elected or the lawmakers who've been elected will of course choose their principal officers. Okay. But it is always necessary that they do so in line with the thinking of the majority of interests that have brought them to the point where they are. So the ruling party should certainly consult. But ultimately, when it is time to vote, it is up to the lawmakers to decide, which is why in consultations, agreements should be reached rather than ultimatum issued. Okay, because it's when you issue ultimata like that, people go in and do what they like. But if at the end of the day, the overall best interest of the country and even the party itself is served by the agreements reached, when they go there, it's just plain sailing. We've seen both, you know, play out where the consultation was robust and agreements made, and it was everybody stood by it. We've also seen where the lawmakers felt they were being bullied, and when they got in there, Of course, you know what happened with Saraki's emergence, and you know, so it's a tightrope that I believe the APC has the wisdom to walk across. Because I mean we've been here for at least 8 years now, and we must have gathered some experience along the way, and our leaders are really very experienced politicians who have seen it, been there, done it. In fact, the national chairman himself is a senator. Okay, so I don't see why we can't take the decisions that will help us. But again, ultimately it boils down to the guys who are going to vote in that chamber that day.
All right, now quickly before we go, I just want you to make some few comments on this particular issue. I think Francis almost started that conversation, but I think he didn't end up in that direction. Okay. He made mention of the fact the proposed bill to stop doctors from traveling outside Nigeria. But I want you to talk about this particular one. Governor Bello Matawale is asking the president of Nigeria not to grant Emefiele study leave. Emefiele is applying to take study leave just few days before the inauguration of or the handover to the new president of Nigeria. And Governor Bello Matawale is saying he has to be in Nigeria. He has just 10 months to end of his tenure as CBN governor, but he has to be in Nigeria and report to the new president before leaving Nigeria. So what are your thoughts on this?
I think Emefiele trying to travel out right now is suspicious, because there are so many things on ground. Like you said, I mean, what's the difference? He can stay handover. If the president were to remove him now, the whole country will go up in arms that he was removed outside of his tenure. So why is he trying to truncate his own tenure by himself in order to run out of the country? Perhaps he feels that he's done certain things that are very inimical to the interests of the Nigerian people, and we know what they are. You know, this Naira change in the way the Naira redesign, the way it was done was clearly an interference with elections. It was designed to throw the country into chaos, and in fact it did hurt a lot of Nigerians. People died because of it, and the economy is yet to recover from it. So we want to, even us, we need answers. I mean, exactly what was that for? Okay, what was so claiming you want to go for study leave abroad and all of, so it means you, for God's sake, I think we should let that he should just be here. After handover, nobody is after him. I mean, he must have done his job based on. No, it's not a question. Unless he has something to hide. As far as I'm concerned, if he did his job and all of those things can be explained within the ambits of central banking, you know, best practices, it has nothing to fear. But if really he did some things to affect some things and change some things, then he has to pay for it. And then I think for the issue of that bill, you know, you kept talking about, I don't think we need a bill to keep our doctors here. But I also do think that if you are sponsored or subsidized by the federal government, you owe the system some fidelity. Okay, and you shouldn't just disappear like that.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right, with that, we end it today on the press, reaching you live from the Abuja studios of KAFTAN Television. And that was our conversation with Okezie Okafor. Thank you so much for watching the program today. Till I come your way tomorrow, I am Sandra Ago.
And I am Francis Adeni. Thank you for staying with us.